Warning! This video contains discussion of sexual misconduct and sexual assault of minors. Viewer discretion is highly advised. Also, please note that I am reading from a script, so if I come off as somewhat robotic in my speech, that's why. It is 11:47 a.m. on the 28th of June 2020, Japan Standard Time. I am unaware of any information that comes out after this date and time. For those of you unaware, over the last couple of weeks, an equivalent to the Me Too movement, known as the Speaking Out movement, has been making its way through the professional wrestling world, beginning in the United Kingdom and spreading to the United States and continental Europe, allowing people who have been sexually harassed, abused, coerced, or raped within the professional wrestling subculture to come forward and tell their stories. The social consequences have been swift and significant, with many of the wrestlers credibly accused losing jobs and bookings, being stripped of championships, being disavowed by promotions, and being forced to retain the services of legal teams. As of this writing, at least 4 promotions I'm aware of have been forced to suspend operations pending management restructuring or to close down completely. Before I say another word, allow me to state unequivocally that this is a good thing. Additionally, my position on the Speaking Out movement is identical to my position on the Me Too movement. I believe the victims and admire them for their courage in speaking out. It's good when there are consequences for bad behavior. That is how we build a better society and a better world. Those who are losing jobs and reputations right now have nobody but themselves to blame. It's important to distinguish that these are social consequences, not legal consequences. The most common counter-response to these sort of situations is always, "What about innocent until proven guilty?" Well, that's a matter for the courts. Yes, all people accused of crimes are innocent until proven guilty, are absolutely entitled to due process, and it is better that 10 guilty people go free than 1 innocent person be imprisoned. However, these are not currently legal matters. They may, and many of them should, become legal cases in the near to intermediate future, at which point all of those caveats and assumptions must apply. But that is not what we're talking about today. Most of the Speaking Out cases have involved wrestlers and organizations that I'm not particularly familiar with, as I don't follow UK wrestling that closely, or at all, and I don't like giving uninformed opinions even on this very limited public platform, so I have not said anything. Then last Thursday, again Japan Standard Time, happened, and everything changed. Founder, booker, owner, and head trainer of Chikara and the Wrestle Factory, Mike Quackenbush, real name Mike Spillane, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anybody's real name here, announced on Twitter, quote, "I have been made aware of recent allegations about myself and people in my employ. I take all allegations seriously, whether they are about me or members of my team. Addressing these with openness and transparency is of the utmost importance to me. So these matters can be given the proper time and attention. I am discontinuing Chikara and resigning as head trainer of the Wrestle Factory. I'll make a full statement on these matters in the near future." And just like that, the world changed. Once again, I will now be discussing specific charges of sexual misconduct. If you do not wish to listen to that, please stop the video now. Thank you for your time in viewing this video up until this point. A Twitter account linked to the Speaking Out movement has posted accusations against Mike Quackenbush of making, quote, "numerous misogynistic, racist, and homophobic remarks, including homophobic jokes about a trainee who came out to him in confidence, and making sexual remarks about female fans at Chikara events, and encouraging other wrestlers to do the same and to make sexual advances on said fans. More seriously, he is accused of an inappropriate sexual relationship with a female trainee. While both participants were legal adults, the power imbalance between trainer/promoter and trainee/wrestler who needs work makes this completely inexcusable. On a personal note, this is not the first time Mike has been accused of unprofessional contact with a female trainee. Several years ago, I was made aware of a former Wrestle Factory trainee's experience, and to put it mildly, it did not paint Quackenbush in a positive light. There was nothing sexual involved, and I was asked to keep the conversation private, so I shall not give the name of my source and give no more details that might identify them. However, those accusations speak to the culture that Mike has allowed and cultivated. But that leads me to more severe accusations that, while they do not accuse Quackenbush himself, speak to the culture that he allowed to fester in the Chikara locker room. Beginning with this past week, Kobold, real name Anthony Wilson, has been accused by multiple women of being physically abusive while they were dating him. In fairness, Kobold was immediately fired from Chikara and removed from the roster page when these accusations came to light. Far worse, Icarus, real named Ronald Grams, has been accused of, among lesser charges, bragging with photographic evidence of a sexual encounter with an underage girl, and even bragging about visible bruises on her body as, quote, she likes it rough, end quote. Prior to this week, though I am only now learning about this here in my Twitter-free bubble, Juan Francisco de Coronado, real name Joe Padilla, I'm not sure, was accused with screenshot evidence of some disgusting sexual advances toward a minor fan. Additionally, Rory Gulak, real name Rory Gulak, has been accused of sexual crimes including grooming and possession and viewing of child pornography. In both the Gulak and Padilla cases, Chikara publicly cut ties with them as well. Former Chikara ring announcer Mark Adam Haggerty, real name I don't bloody care at this point, has also been accused of sexual assault and has been fired by basically everywhere he worked. Since these initial charges, other wrestlers, including Calix the Castigator, have described a strong culture of bullying, body shaming, and harassment in the Wrestle Factory, and there are probably several other incidents I have missed or will be revealed between this writing and whenever I get this recorded and posted. Late June 27th, 2020 my time, I think. I know very little about how Twitter displays things in different time zones. Mike Quackenbush posted a 13-minute-plus video wherein he goes through all of the accusations and either denies, explains, or accepts responsibility for them in turn. He admits to many of the offensive comments, denies the accusations of sleeping with a trainee, though admits to having had relationships with members of the Chikara roster 2 times in the past, but never with a trainee, and accepts responsibility and apologizes for actions performed by his trainers while under his employ. The words, "I'm sorry," appear repeatedly throughout the video. The video is clearly edited, meaning it was made over multiple takes, and he becomes increasingly emotional throughout the video, ending in full-blown tears. He also looks like he hasn't slept in a couple of days, and the phrase gibbering wreck applies at least a few points in the video. So I suppose the big question is, do I believe him? The simple answer is, I don't know. He said a lot of the right things and took care not to dox the anonymous accusers, though he made it clear he knows who they are. I respect that. Same for his refusal to identify the Chikara wrestlers he'd been in relationships with in the past. A couple of the explanations he offered made sense. Specifically, his denial that a re-evaluation and subsequent demotion of a trainee was not gaslighting, as I, and most others understand the term. And if Mike is telling the truth, and that's a big if, a wrestler who lacks the proper upper body strength needed to safely control the body of their opponent deserves to be demoted. Furthermore, this practice is not unique to the Wrestle Factory, as it was shown on the WWE Breaking Ground series that trainees at the Performance Center can be demoted to lower classes if they don't show sufficient progress. I find this explanation completely plausible. I'm a little more mixed on the denial that a trainee was given a private hotel room as being something they must have paid for themselves. Do I believe Mike Quackenbush is a cheapskate? Yes! Do I have the receipts to back this defense up? No. And his defense to accusations of asking a trainee out to dinner and balking at the idea of her family attending as being a group event that was wrestlers only, I've been a part of enough co-worker bonding experiences where family were not invited that I find this explanation plausible as well, but still understand where miscommunication could easily happen and how his initial reaction could be interpreted as, oh, I wanted to get the girl alone. As for what he has confessed to, that he used a lot of inappropriate language in the past without realizing how hurtful he was being, yeah, I believe that a cis-het white guy could be that dense. That's no excuse, but it is believable. Now, what do I not believe? The obvious reaction when a professional wrestler or other professional performer of any genre does something like this is always, ah man, it's a work. And the last time Chikara shut down, it was a work. There were implications of inappropriate conduct by Quackenbush back then, but no actual accusations by anyone close to the situation as far as I'm aware. So the question is this a promo? Is this an ass-covering maneuver? Well, probably. One comment I noticed pointed out that he used his wrestling name right before saying that this video was not part of a wrestling storyline. I know a lot of people who use professional names, myself included in a few cases, so that didn't stand out to me. But I've seen him give lectures and examples on how to cut a promo, and this did have elements of that. Is he a professional performer not controlling his instincts in front of a camera? Or is he a professional bullshitter and manipulator working the marks? I don't know. And in the end, I don't think it really matters. While I have had some minor interactions with Mike Quackenbush in the past, mainly him responding to comments I'd posted either on YouTube or the Chikara 101 forums, it's wrong to say that I know the man in any actual sense. But there are people who do. Within hours of the accusations against Mike Quackenbush hitting the internet, a massive number of Chikara wrestlers publicly announced that they were cutting all ties with the promotion and the training school effective immediately. Though some admitted that they had left the promotion earlier, but were now making these statements in public to clear up any confusion as to their affiliations. As of this recording, the current list of wrestlers disassociating from Chikara, compiled by V45Deta on Reddit, complete with links to tweets to confirm their sources. Good job on that, by the way, random internet person. The list currently stands at Joshua Wells, Lucas Calhoun, Thiefant, Hollow Wicked, The Whisper, Grand Champion Dasher Hatfield, Frightmare, Jakob Hammermeyer, Frey Nassar, Princess Kimberly, Green Ant, Xavier Faraday, Ophidian, Hermit Crab, Sydney Bacabella, Still Life with Apricots and Pears, Lady Frost, aka Red Queen, Victor Benjamin, aka One-Eyed Jack, Scott Holiday, Mobius, Razorhawk, Dangerhawk, Lance Steele, Worker Ant, Murloc, Frantic, Calix the Castigator, Volgar, Tunku Amir. Many of these tweets came out before the announcement that Chikara was closing its doors. Literally nobody who is anywhere near this situation is defending Quackenbush. As close-knit as the Chikara family has been over the years, their silence on his behalf is deafening. In fact, the fact that the entire damned roster quit en masse leads me to believe that things are actually much worse than we know about. But that's not to say the reaction has been all negative. Many now former Chikara wrestlers are saying how heartbroken they are that something wonderful, even magical, has been lost. There are 3 tweets that I would like to read. First, from Chikara and AEW referee, Mr. Bryce Remsburg. Quote, Chikara was never about one person or one building or any tangible thing. Chikara was about a community, about a spirit I and many others spent my entire adult life helping to facilitate, on both sides of the curtain. When processing this, please try and separate the two. Next, from reigning and now apparently final Chikara Grand Champion, Mr. Dasher Hatfield. Quote, I've dedicated my entire wrestling career to Chikara. Once upon a time, we created magic. I truly believe that. At this point, I'm embarrassed. I feel let down. My heart is smashed. I'm extremely sorry for those I hurt. I still believe wrestling has the power to cure. Man, I hope I'm right. Several comments down, Hatfield was asked by someone if he was planning on relinquishing the championship or quote, throwing it in the garbage where it belongs. Hatfield responded, and I quote, I'm no longer a part of the company. Throwing the belt in the garbage would be a slap in the face to a lot of the best, hardest working people I've ever met, his emphasis. Lastly, from a person that though he has not been involved with the company in a long time, I consider to be a central pillar of the Chikara legacy, history, whatever, and that is Ultra Mantis Black. Quote, I know I haven't been involved with Chikara for a few years now, but I just wanted to comment on what's been going on over the last week, not just there, but in wrestling in general with the hashtag Speaking Out movement. I started gravitating away from the wrestling scene long ago. For all of the positive community that existed, there has always been, at best, an uncomfortable power dynamic and, at worst, general scumfuckery. For my own mental health, I mostly existed in my own bubble. That's never been helpful to anyone, and certainly didn't make me an agent of change in the business, and I take responsibility for that. I stand by anybody speaking up, whether you have been a victim of abuse or just the miserable bullying culture that still pervades the industry. I don't know a lot of the kids breaking in right now in Philly, but by all accounts from folks I trust, they are the best kind of people. They all have an open door to any of the shows I book in the future. I can't teach much to the younger crowd when it comes to wrestling, but I know a lot about rebuilding. Love and solidarity, Ultramantis Black. Furthermore, offers of training and work have been flooding in from Chikara veterans and alumna, and it looks like most of the roster at least has a chance to land on their feet. I think I should back up for a minute here. Why am I doing this? Why do I care so much about this? With all the horrible things going on in the world, with all the objectively worse accusations out there, why am I taking time to make a video that will be definitely longer than the video made by the guy who was accused trying to, salvage his reputation? Because Chikara means a lot to me. Yes, it came closest to matching what I would do as a professional wrestling booker. Yes, it entertained me greatly for many, many years. Yes, it greatly influenced my silly little hobby here on YouTube. Yes, it allowed me to connect with like-minded wrestling fans in ways I'd never had the chance to before. But there is more to it than that. I'm not sure if I've shared this on one of these videos before, but even if I have, it bears repeating. Between October 2011 and April of 2012, both of my parents passed away from cancer. Due to professional obligations I'd rather not discuss here, I did not have the chance to properly mourn their deaths and process the grief I was experiencing. To put it in wrestling terminology, I had to put on my mask and go out to the ring. This was not good for my mental state, and I probably need therapy that is completely socially unacceptable in Japan and that I couldn't afford anyway. Chikara was my escape. It was 2 to 3 hours a month where I could sit down, relax, watch wrestling that I knew was going to be good and wouldn't piss me off and make me go into armchair booker mode and rant for 30 minutes. Then Chikara closed down as part of the Ashes storyline. To this day, I don't know if losing Chikara kick-started the grieving process for me or just coincidentally mirrored it, but I became deeply emotionally connected to that story. I felt true hope and joy when Eddie Kingston revealed that he still carried the Grand Championship. I shook with happiness when a man I now know to be a monster held up a piece of paper with a message written in Sharpie to a camera and told me to tell the world we're coming back. I felt shock and loss when a literal Grim Reaper killed magical frogs, living oak trees, and legacy students. I cried with near orgasmic joy when the colony stood united once again, 4 ants strong. Beyond that, Chikara was a philosophy of storytelling that I completely believed in. Women and non-binary wrestlers can be equal to men in the ring, and can even be champions without their gender being the only aspect of their character. Wrestlers of color don't have to be confined to racist gimmicks from the halls of vaudeville. Wrestling can be family-friendly without being boring. Long-form storytelling that requires the audience to pay attention can work. Rules, world building, character arcs, and continuity are blessings for a booker, not curses. Character and passion can overcome budget and production values. And Mike Quackenbush betrayed all of that. By creating a culture of abuse, bullying, and power imbalance, he is spitting in the face of everything that Chikara stood for. That's why it's so hard to believe him when he looks us in the eye and says the right things. He's been saying the right things for 20 years, while behind that silver curtain, he's been saying and doing the exact opposite. Of course, the most important things here are the actual victims. People both male and female, the people who have been actually harmed. They deserve the voice and help that I can't give them. They are the heroes in this story for speaking out and making a demonstrable improvement in professional wrestling. People love to whine and complain about cancel culture when they really mean that bad behavior is finally beginning to have consequences and they don't like that. Not just the people I've mentioned in this video, but other people who have had karma give them a long overdue kick up the ass. They deserve what happens to them. If that means they never work in wrestling again, fine. If that means they have to answer to the legal system too, fine. But the story now needs to shift to what comes next. Chikara is dead. For now. I believe Mike Quackenbush is finished in professional wrestling. Mike and Chikara are as intricately linked as any promotion and promoter have ever been. ECW existed before Paul Heyman. WWE existed before the current Vince McMahon, and will probably exist after he is gone. But can Chikara exist without Mike Quackenbush? Yes, I believe it can. If you follow the product, you know what a Chikara show looks like. You know the rules and the traditions that form the skeleton of the show. While there are many wrestlers that are thought of as Chikara wrestlers, it's never been about one person, as Bryce Remsburg so eloquently said on Twitter. By the way, eloquently said on Twitter, that's a sentence I've never used before. Seemingly central pillars of the promotion have left for various reasons, including Ultramantis Black, Claudio Castagnoli, Eddie Kingston, most of the Ants, and Chikara survived perfectly well without them. Chikara has also formed such a well-defined niche that any wrestling company that tries to do complicated world building, complicated character buildings, mature character arcs, or just fantasy and science fiction intermixed with professional wrestling is compared, often favorably, to Chikara. Lucha Underground? The Dark Chikara. Wrestling Society X? The Prototype Chikara. DDT, or Hustle? Japanese Chikara, etc., etc., etc. There is so much love for Chikara as an idea that I think any wrestler who hasn't been accused and has enough Chikara street cred could restart the promotion, or an explicit spiritual successor if they're unable to get their hands on the copyrights to gimmicks and the promotion itself, and be successful. The best names for this that pop to mind are Ophidian, Hollow Wicked, Ultramantis Black, and Bryce Remsburg. Wrestling promotions have lost major leaders and even founders to bad and criminal behavior before, and not only survived, but thrived after their departure. The best modern example probably being Ring of Honor. For the sake of the immensely talented performers who now find themselves without a job, for the positive and necessary idea of wrestling that Chikara represented, and last and least, for fans like me, for whom Chikara was never just a wrestling promotion. It was part of who we were. I'm Ryu-sensei, and for the first time since the Ashes, I am not Chikara. But I hope to be again someday. Thank you.